It's official in the only room that counts. Golden State has moved from idea to plan on a veteran 7-footer who plays point guard from the elbows and vacuums the glass when the game gets ugly. After that opener, the phones lit up, the cap sheets came out, and the coaching room cued every split-action clip where skill big buys Steph an extra half-second of daylight. I've seen the sketch-steady hands, playoff miles, contract that can be solved if you're brave. Stay with me, because what I'm laying out tonight is bigger than a rumor. It's a blueprint with timing, price ranges, and on-court wrinkles that actually fit the DNA of this team. I'm talking about a center who doesn't chase headlines, but controls possessions, who doesn't need 20 shots to matter, and whose best plays sometimes show up as other people's open threes. If you've watched this group long enough, you know exactly why that matters. When this offense hums, it's because the first pass arrives early, the second screen arrives heavier, and the third option is ready the moment the defense blinks. That's where this whole conversation started inside a film room, with coaches pausing clips on the pocket pass, the pinch post, and the short roll. And yes, I'll reveal the name when it makes sense, not when the timeline wants a click, because what we're building here is a case as clean as a back cut in Denver altitude. I'll be straight. Opening night told us two truths at once. First, the Warriors still understand how to turn a game with patience, clean first touch, controlled third quarter, veteran execution in the last 6 minutes. That's muscle memory. Second, they still have to grind a little too hard for clean paint touches against size, and that's where February basketball can turn heavy. You can outskill a lot of teams with pace and read and react. But 4 rounds in May ask for second chance rebounds, for a big who boxes out 2 bodies so the guards can leak, for a grown man who turns a 50-50 ball into a 70-30 because he carved space 2 beats earlier. This is not about throwing the system in the trash. It's about adding a stabilizer bar to a race car that already knows the track. Give Steph a partner in the middle floor who can set a screen like a wall, slip with a purpose, catch on the move, and deliver the layup pass to the corner without needing to dribble the air. Out of the ball, that's how you squeeze extra points. Out of identical actions, there's also the reality of what this locker room is built on: trust, economy, and timing. Draymond is still the heartbeat on defense and the first voice when something needs saying. The wings around him toggle between slashing and spacing. They don't need an extra mouth to feed. They need an extra brain that feeds them. On nights when the bench skews young or small, you can't afford 5 empty trips trying to force a mismatch that isn't there. You need a hub who resets the chessboard with one touch. That's where this target is different from the typical athlete at the 5 dream. The league is full of rim runners who dunk and block shots. They help, sure, but they don't rewire your half-court reads. The type we're talking about creates an extra passing angle on almost every trip. He's a second conductor, and on a team with the greatest shooter ever, a second conductor means the song never drops a beat. Let me paint the 5-minute picture that had the Bay texting at midnight. Imagine a bass set that looks like nothing, just Steph bringing it up, Dre at the top, 2 shooters tucked in both corners, and our center jogging in late like he's not part of it. Now watch the twist. The late entry becomes the first screen. Steph rejects it. The big catches at the elbow. Dre flips to a splitter. The weak side tagger hesitates. And the ball is already out to the corner before the defense decides which fire to put out. That single sequence can look meaningfully different if your 5 is an elbow passer with touch. It's not about 30-point nights. It's about transforming good shots into great ones during the 6-2 runs that turn into 13-4 avalanches. If you remember the best Warriors minutes from the Dynasty years, it wasn't just shooting. It was timing and economy. This move is about restoring economy with a player who sees the game in 0.5 seconds. There's a money column to everything now, and I won't insult you by pretending the new tax rules are a footnote. They're the headline for most front offices. The deeper you go into the apron, the fewer levers you can pull. That means you can't take back more money than you send. It means you can't stitch together a deal with tiny exceptions like it's a yard sale. It means draft picks must be chosen with surgical care because future flexibility now has a price tag in neon. For the Warriors, who live in a luxury neighborhood on purpose, a move like this is only real if it squares with those rules. It points toward matching salary frameworks that don't torch the identity of the team. You're thinking what I'm thinking. A wing-size contract, a guard-size contract, and draft capital that acknowledges the value of a starting caliber center without mortgaging the window. The Stepien rule exists. You can't throw consecutive firsts like confetti. So you build with swaps, a distant first, and seconds that become real grease when the third team enters the dance. This is practical, not fantasy. Before I drop the name, let me be crystal on timeline. You make this kind of deal before the market panics, not after. If you wait until deadline week, teams with similar needs think half the conference start overpaying for the same archetype. The wise play is to build the framework early, take the league's temperature, and then act when two conditions click at once. Your own rotation needs to bump. And the other side has a motivation that isn't just we're bored. And that's where Chicago enters the room. This isn't gossip. It's the logic of two timelines. They've been toggling between reboot and retool for a while, and every veteran on a clean contract becomes a conversation, not a promise. What they want is value. They can explain to their fans. Something that points forward, not just salary relief. The Warriors' pitch isn't we're doing you a favor. It's we're giving you assets that fit your next version, and we're doing it cleanly. Okay, you've waited long enough, and you earned the reveal. The center on Golden State's whiteboard is Nikola Vuvecic. Say it out loud so it sinks in not because it's a headline built to shock, but because the fit reads like a scouting report the coaches wrote themselves. He's a two-time All-Star with a decade of double-double credibility. An elbow hub who turns dribbles into passes. A pick-and-pop threat who keeps the nailed defender honest. And a grown man rebounder who doesn't need the ball to impact a quarter. He is not the gazelle who erases a mistake 12 feet above the rim. And he's not the 1-through-5 switch monster that exists primarily in video games. He is a possession winner and a decision change shortener. On this roster, that's an amplifier for Steph and a relief valve for everyone else. Now, let's walk into the gym and see it. First set, delay action. Big trailing. Steph hits the wing, cuts through. Vuvecic catches at the top. Dre back screens for the corner, slips to the dunker spot, and the ball reaches him in stride because Vooch doesn't need to stare at the seams. That is a layup or a corner three, depending on one defender's foot angle. Second set, Spain pick and roll Steph lives in this play, and Vooch's shooting gravity forces the backline to choose between tagging the roller and contesting the pop. Either you give Steph a pocket pass that turns into a floater, or you leave a clean look at the top for a big who has lived on that shot for years. Third set, post split at the left block. Steph feeds Vooch, sprints the screen for a wing, and as the defender top blocks, Vooch simply keeps the ball high and drops the bounce pass to the cutter. This is what I mean by possession control. No wasted movement, 2 points. Defense matters. And here's the honest talk. Vuvecic won't switch on to every guard and dance happily 24 feet from the rim. That's fine. That's not the ask here. The ask is to survive and drop, to communicate early, to box out so the first miss is the last, and to angle drivers toward help where Draymond lives to strip the ball. You can play a little more ICE on side pick and rolls, keep him in a narrower corral. Use the low man as a constant stunt, and trust that your back line will finish possessions. When matchups tilt young and fast, you stagger his minutes so he anchors second units where the speed outside is lower, but the need for structure is higher. And when you see a Jokic or an Embiid on the calendar, nobody in this league lives on an island anyway. It's 5 bodies and 36 rotations. What matters is that the defensive floor stays steady enough that the offensive ceiling can win you runs. Vuvecic gives you that floor because he doesn't foul cheaply, and he claims the glass like it's his job, which it is. Let's talk human element. This locker room breeds accountability and economy. You can't parachute in a star who needs a new playbook and a new spotlight. You want a pro, someone who's been a number 1 and a number 3 and understands both jobs. Vooch has worn both hats. He's played in chaos and in structure. He's been the safety blanket for young guards and the quiet engine next to ball-dominant wings. On the Warriors, the ask would be simple. Screen with violence, pivot fast, talk on defense, and feed the shooters. He will not step on Steph's cadence. He will not slow the tempo by dribbling. He will touch the ball a lot without holding it, which is a skill and a mindset. Also, culture matters on the bench. Young players play freer when they know a big will clean up their mess and hand them another good look 20 seconds later. That's how confidence grows across a season. Now, the cost, not the fantasy column version, the adult version. Chicago will not give away a starting center with two-way value just to feel alive at the deadline. They'll want picks that point forward and a player who either fits their timeline or can be rerouted to a third team for something that does. For Golden State, that means you guard your crown jewels, but you don't pretend everyone is untouchable. There are frameworks that orbit around a mid-tier wing contract, a rotational guard, and a pick structure with one protected first plus swaps and seconds. You can involve a third team to absorb a guard and return a cheaper big or a pick that sweetens Chicago's side of the ledger. The goal is to do the adult thing, improve meaningfully without blowing a hole in the boat. Does a deal like this cost you some continuity? Of course. But it gives you something the playoffs always demand. Predictable possessions when the whistle goes silent and the game turns into half-court math. There's another reason the timing whispers. Sooner rather than later, the West is stacked with teams that want exactly this archetype. If you snooze, you're countering him in May instead of feeding off him in March. And Vooch's contract profile is digestible for a team that already knows it's living at the apron. You're not adding a mystery box that forces rewrites every night. You're adding a known quantity whose production line looks the same across buildings and uniforms. That matters when the schedule tightens and there's no practice time for reinvention. You can plug him into what you already run and make small, meaningful tweaks. Think more add brass than change the melody. For the basketball nerds in the back, yes, I'm one of you. Picture the Steph Vooch two-man game in Chicago action. Wing handoff to Steph, immediate rescreen into a pocket pass, corner drifts up, and the strong side tagger has to make a binary choice. If he tags, Vooch hits the wing for 3. If he refuses, Steph turns the corner with a head of steam. All that comes from one thing, a big who can catch clean, pivot immediately, and make the simple read at speed. The Warriors have lived off that ecosystem forever. This just plugs a veteran battery into it. On nights when opponents top-lock Steph off every pin down, the answer isn't always run faster. Sometimes the answer is use the big as a passer and force them to guard a different angle. Now, some of you want the honest risk rundown, so here it is. Age doesn't go backward. Vuvecic is not becoming springier as the months pass. If your dream is to switch 1 through 5 for 48 minutes, he's not that. If your dream is a lob catcher who scares the backboard, he's not that either. The risk is that you trade for a high floor, medium ceiling big, and wonder in June if you needed more pop. But ask yourself what wins possessions in playoff basketball. It's not always the viral play. It's often the adult play. It's boxing out on the weak side so a miss becomes your ball, catching at 16 feet and hitting the cutter, keeping your hands free to bump a rolling guard without fouling. If the Warriors' identity is read and react, then the best compliment is a big who reads and reacts fast. That's Vooch's lane. The age decline risk is real, but the production floor is also real, and the contract timing lines up with Steph's window. That's the bet. There's always a what-if-not section in a real front office discussion. And yes, other names float. There are pure rim protector archetypes. There are younger upside plays. There are stopgaps who eat innings. I'm not dismissing any of them. I'm telling you the one that checks the most boxes for this exact roster without asking the system to become something it isn't. If you've been riding with this channel, you know I won't sell you fireworks for fireworks' sake. This is not a fantasy trade graphic. It's a basketball idea that the film supports and the cap math doesn't crush. And if you're with me so far, do me a solid tap that like, sub if you're new, and keep notifications on. This community doesn't just react. We watch the film, we weigh the numbers, and we talk like people who love the game for the right reasons. That helps us cut through the noise when everyone else starts screaming in January. Back to the court, where this really matters. Picture late game, tie score, 2 minutes left on the road. Teams switch more, whistles tighten, nerves show. You run horns with Steph in a wing at the elbows, Vooch catching, Dre lurking as the second screener. First read is the back cut, take it if it's there. Second read is the dribble handoff into a re-screen if the guard trails, Steph has air. If the defender goes under, Vooch is a rhythm pop. Third read, if neither bites, you go into a small pick with Steph and the wing while Vooch ducks into the lane, sealing a guard for a layup or the easy kick out. That's not a highlight. That's winning basketball. Over a series, those plays add up like deposits. You don't need 5 extra threes a night. You need 3 possessions that don't die ugly. This is how you buy them. I know some of you worry about blocking internal growth for Trace, Jackson Davis, or minutes for the young guards. Fair question. This move doesn't erase their runway. It gives them a windscreen. Young bigs learn faster next to a veteran who communicates and eats the hard minutes against bruisers. The second unit becomes calmer, the rotation has fewer spikes, and the developmental reps happen in cleaner lineups. And if a night calls for speed and verticality, you play it. This staff has never been shy about matchup-driven rotations. Vuvecic wouldn't erase options. He would widen them. You also want to know if the Bulls say yes. That part lives in their room, not ours. But if they shift in the future-first mode and the price is draft value plus a functional player who fits what they want next, the conversation gets real. The Warriors won't be the only callers. The difference here is the system fit. Not every team with assets can use Vuvecic the way Golden State can. The Warriors can maximize his passing from day one. That raises his on-court value here more than in places where the big is asked to park in the dunker spot and wait. That gap matters in negotiations because the team that sees the most value can pay the fairest price without mortgaging the barn dot. So where does that leave us tonight? With an idea that grew legs, with fit that passes the film test, and with a timetable that rewards decisiveness. I don't sell certainty, I sell clarity. The clear read is this. Nikola Vuvecic would make the Warriors' offense more predictable in the best way, and their defense steadier in the trenches. You would help Steph age like wine, help Draymond conserve batteries for fourth quarters, and help the wings eat off cleaner looks. He's not a billboard move. He's a basketball move. And if the numbers align without slicing a core nerve, the front office has enough discipline to pull it off. And enough humility to walk away if the price gets silly. I'm going to say it plain. Because you've been with me from the first beat. If the Warriors want to spend the season deciding themselves instead of letting matchups decide them, adding Vuvecic is one of the clearest roads there. It respects what they are. It acknowledges what they're not. And it shores up the precise minutes that cost you sleep in May. Tell me what you see. Do you value the high floor in the playoffs as much as I do? Or are you chasing more pop at the cost of rhythm? Drop your take below, because this community is brutally smart on fit, and I read every word. My brief conclusion on the headline: the interest is real, the basketball case is strong, the money is feasible with discipline, and the decision will come down to price versus window. If you want more of this no fluff, no shouting, just credible analysis and a fan's heart stick with the channel. Hit that button and keep your alerts on. I'll keep you ahead of the curve with clean breakdowns and updates the moment the board shifts.